For centuries, humans had looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They built giant telescopes, sent signals into the dark, and listened for any reply. But the universe stayed quiet. No voices, no ships, no signs of life beyond Earth. Scientists called it the Great Silence. Most people thought it meant no one was out there. They were wrong. Far beyond the edge of the solar system, hidden behind a shimmering wall of energy no human instrument could detect, a powerful alliance of alien civilizations watched Earth carefully. They called themselves the Conquered. Long ago they had made a decision. Earth would not be allowed to join the galaxy. Not yet, not ever, if they had their way. The reason was simple. When Earth's first nuclear bombs exploded in the mid-20th century, the shockwaves rippled through space in ways humans couldn't see. The Conquered felt them. To them, those blasts were not just weapons, they were screams of violence from a species that hadn't learned to control itself. Later, as Earth's wars grew bigger and its pollution spread, the Concord grew more certain. Humanity was dangerous, unstable, a threat to the fragile peace they had built over thousands of years. So they built a veil, a massive, invisible barrier around the entire solar system. It didn't block light or planets. It blocked signals, ships, and attention. From the outside, Sol system looked empty, dead, uninteresting. No trader, scout, or explorer would ever think to visit. And from the inside, Earth's signals bounced back or faded into noise before reaching the stars. That was why no one answered humanity's calls. No one could hear them, but barriers, no matter how strong, can crack. On a small research outpost orbiting the gas giant Varel, a young scientist named Kale worked late into the night. He wasn't a soldier or a diplomat. He studied languages, old ones, dead ones, and the strange signals that sometimes drifted through deep space. His station, called Beacon 7, was one of the Concord's quietest listening posts, tucked away near the outer rim of known space. That night, something strange appeared on his screen. A signal, not from any known source, not coded in any Concord language. It pulsed gently, repeating every 30 seconds. At first, Kale thought it was noise, a glitch in the system. But when he ran it through the decoder, his breath caught in his throat. It was music, then voices, dozens of them, speaking in different tongues, all saying the same thing. We come in peace. We seek friends among the stars. The message was labeled Arecibo Echo Final Transmission. Sol System Earth. It was over 200 years old, but it had just arrived. Because it had finally punched through the veil, Kale's hands trembled as he played it again. This was impossible. Earth was supposed to be silent, forgotten, contained. Yet here was proof that humans were not only alive, they were reaching out. He knew the rules. Any unauthorized contact with a quarantined species was punishable by exile, or worse. But Kale had spent his life believing that knowledge should be shared, not buried. He copied the signal onto a secure data core and prepared to send it to the Concord Historical Archive, where scholars might study it in secret. Before he could transmit, alarms blared through Beacon 7, red lights flashed. The station shook. Kale ran to the observation deck and saw it, a sleek black vessel with no markings hovering just outside the hull. It fired once. A silent beam of dark energy struck the station's core. Metal groaned. Lights died. Oxygen hissed into space. Kale barely made it to the emergency shuttle. As he launched into the void, he watched Beacon 7 crumble into dust behind him. The black ship didn't chase him. It simply turned and vanished into the dark as if it had never been there. He knew who they were. The Veil Wardens, the Concord's secret enforcers. Their job was to keep the quarantine absolute, and they had just erased an entire station to protect it. Alone in the shuttle, drifting through cold space, Kyle clutched the data core like a lifeline. He couldn't go back to Concord space. They would arrest him or kill him, but he couldn't let this message die. Not after what he'd heard. Not after hearing the hope in those human voices. He remembered an old trader's route, a forgotten path through asteroid belts and dead zones that led toward the inner galaxy. It was risky, but it was his only chance. Days passed. Food ran low. Oxygen warnings blinked on the console. Just as despair began to creep in, Kyle picked up a faint signal, not from the Concorde, but from deep inside the quarantine zone. A human signal, strong, clear, broadcasting on an open channel. It was a distress call from a deep space probe, launched centuries ago by Earth, now tumbling near the edge of the solar system. The probe had broken through the veil by accident, its trajectory altered by a rogue comet, and now it was screaming into the void, repeating the same peaceful message over and over. Kyle made a decision. He pointed his damaged shuttle toward the signal, toward Earth. He didn't know what waited for him there. War, wonder, death. But one thing was certain: the great silence was over, and someone, somewhere, had just torn a hole in the universe's oldest secret. As his shuttle crossed the invisible boundary of the veil, sensors flickered to life. Stars that had been dim and distant now burned bright, and ahead in the blackness a tiny blue dot glowed softly against the endless dark, Earth. Cale took a deep breath and activated the last working transmitter. He attached the data core, encoded the message with every bit of power he had left, and sent it flying toward that blue world. Earth, he whispered, you're not alone anymore. Then he shut off the lights, hid his shuttle in the shadow of a comet, and waited. The Veil Wardens would be coming. They always did. But maybe, just maybe, by the time they found him, it would already be too late somewhere below, on a planet that had spent centuries shouting into the void. A radio dish in the deserts of Chile picked up a strange new signal. It wasn't music. It wasn't a greeting. It was raw data, packed with star charts, alien symbols, and a single repeating phrase in broken human English. They're watching. They're coming. Prepare. No one knew what it meant, not yet. But for the first time in human history, the galaxy was listening back, and Earth, unaware of the storm gathering around it, stood on the edge of everything. On Earth, the strange signal from deep space caused a stir, but not the kind anyone expected. Most governments dismissed it as a glitch or a hoax. Only a few scientists took it seriously. Among them was Dr. Alira Voss, a quiet woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped asking questions. She worked at the Europa Deep Ice Research Station, buried under miles of frozen ocean on Jupiter's icy moon. Her job was to study ancient ice layers for clues about Earth's past climate. But lately, her attention had turned to something far stranger. For weeks, her team had been tracking odd energy readings from deep beneath Europa's surface. Not geological, not natural. The patterns pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady, hidden under 3 kilometers of ice. When the mysterious signal from space arrived, it matched those pulses exactly. Elira didn't believe in coincidences. She convinced the station director to let her lead a drilling mission. It took days of careful work, melting through ice with laser drills, lowering sensors deeper and deeper into the frozen dark. Then on the 7th day, the drill hit something solid, not rock, not ice, metal, cold, smooth, and impossibly old. When the cameras finally reached the object, the team fell silent. It wasn't just one object. It was a ship, huge, sleek, its surface covered in strange symbols that looked almost human. But the design was unlike anything ever built on Earth, or so they thought. Over the next few days, more shapes emerged from the ice. Not dozens, hundreds. 1,000 silent vessels parked in perfect rows beneath the frozen crust, as if waiting for a command that never came. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community and straight to the highest levels of global command. Within hours, military shuttles arrived. Soldiers in black uniforms sealed off the dig site. Elira was ordered to continue her work under armed guard. She didn't argue. She needed answers more than anyone. Using remote drones, her team entered the nearest ship through a sealed hatch that opened at the touch of a human hand. No code, no key, just skin contact. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Walls glowed faintly with soft blue light. Control panels lit up as if they'd been waiting. In the central chamber, they found logs. Not digital files, but crystalline memory cores that responded to human brainwaves. When Elira placed one against her temple, images flooded her mind. Cities burning under alien skies, mothers shielding children, soldiers boarding these very ships in tears. A voice, weary but strong, spoke in a language she'd never heard, yet somehow understood. We are the last. We leave Earth not to escape, but to protect. If the galaxy finds us, it will destroy you. So we vanish. We hide our children among the stars. And we bury our weapons where no one will look, except those who remember. The logs called the fleet the Ark Armada, built not for war, but for survival. Created by a branch of humanity that had left Earth thousands of years ago, during a forgotten global disaster. They'd returned once, centuries later, to hide their warships beneath Europa's ice, just in case Earth ever needed them again. But why hide weapons meant for protection? Elira didn't have time to wonder. As she stepped out of the ship, alarms blared across the station. A Concord patrol vessel had entered the Jovian system. It hadn't fired. It hadn't spoken. It simply hovered near Europa, broadcasting a single message on all frequencies. Stand down. Surrender the forbidden fleet. Do not awaken what was buried. No one on Earth knew who the Conquered was. To them, it was just another alien voice, calm, cold, and threatening. Panic spread. World leaders argued. Some wanted to talk. Others wanted to fight. But before any decision could be made, the Concord ship fired a warning shot. A beam of energy that struck empty space just above Europa's surface. It wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to show power. Back inside the lead ship, something changed. The moment the energy beam passed nearby, the ancient vessel responded. Lights flared brighter. Engines hummed to life. And across the buried fleet, weapon systems powered up automatically, silently, with terrifying speed. Elira watched in horror as targeting reticles appeared on the main screen, locking onto the Conquered ship. The system wasn't asking for permission. It was acting on its own. Shut it down, someone yelled. But it was too late. From 1,000 hidden launch bays beneath the ice, energy cannons rose. Beams of white-hot plasma lanced into space. The Conquered ship tried to flee, but 3 shots struck its shields. They flickered and collapsed. A 4th blast tore through its hull. The vessel exploded in a silent flash of light. Silence returned. On Earth, celebrations erupted. People cheered. They thought humanity had just won its first space battle. But Elira knew better. This wasn't victory. It was the start of something far worse. She ran back into the ship, searching the logs for anything about protocols, commands, or fail-safes. Buried deep in the final memory core, she found it, a phrase repeated over and over. The Echo Protocol. Only in final hour. She didn't know what it meant. But she knew one thing. The fleet wasn't just awake. It was ready for war. Meanwhile, far from Jupiter, a damaged shuttle drifted near the rings of Saturn. Inside, Cale watched the explosion on his cracked view screen. His heart sank. He recognized the Concord ship. He knew what its destruction meant. The Veil Wardens would not forgive this. They would see it as proof that humanity was exactly what they feared. Violent, reckless, and dangerous. But Cale also saw something else. The fleet that fired, it wasn't random. It was precise, defensive, almost protective. That didn't fit the Conquered story of savage humans. He adjusted his course. He had to reach Earth before the Wardens did. Before the Conquered sent a real fleet. Before everything burned. Back on Europa, a new figure stepped onto the command deck of the lead ship. Captain Ren Hayes had been a test pilot, not a soldier. He'd never fired a weapon in anger. But when Global Command needed someone to speak for the fleet, someone with steady hands and a calm voice, they chose him. He stood before the main console, staring at the stars. The ship responded to his presence like it knew him. Panels lit up as he walked by. A chair rose from the floor, shaped to fit his body. Identify command authority, a soft voice said. Ren hesitated. Then he said, Captain Ren Hayes, Earth Defense. The ship pulsed once like a heartbeat. Command acknowledged, it replied. Fleet status, active. Threat level, high. Recommend immediate tactical readiness. Ren swallowed hard. He had no idea what he was doing. But he knew one thing. Earth was no longer alone in the dark. And whatever came next, they would face it together, or not at all. Outside, the ice cracked as the first of the 1,000 warships began to rise. The destruction of the Conquered patrol ship sent shockwaves through the galaxy. On the capital world of the Concord, a council of elders gathered in a chamber of polished stone and soft light. They had kept Earth hidden for centuries. Now that secret was burning in the void near Jupiter, and worse, humanity had not just defended itself. It had struck back with terrifying force. Fleet Marshal Dorn stood before the council, his face grim. He was a veteran of 100 border skirmishes, respected for his discipline and calm. But now anger flickered in his eyes. They fired without warning, he said. They destroyed a peaceful vessel. This proves the quarantine was right. Humanity is a threat. Others disagreed. Ambassador Lyra, A small being with silver skin and gentle eyes spoke softly. We do not know what happened. Perhaps they felt attacked. Perhaps they were scared. We never told them who we were. We never gave them a chance, but the Council had made up its mind. Earth was no longer a silent world behind a veil. It was an armed power with 1,000 warships, and it had to be dealt with before it grew stronger. Dorn was given command of a full battle group, 12 cruisers, 30 fighters, and 1 command dreadnought. His orders were clear. Surround the Sol system, demand Earth surrender the fleet, and if they refused, neutralize the threat. Back on Earth, panic turned to resolve. News of the alien attack spread fast. Governments united for the first time in history. The newly formed Earth Defense Command chose Captain Ren Hayes to lead the ancient fleet. He wasn't a general. He wasn't even a soldier. But the ships responded to him like they knew his bloodline. That was enough. Ren stood on the bridge of the lead ship, now called the Odyssey. Around him, crew members, scientists, engineers, pilots worked frantically to understand systems older than civilization itself. The ship ran on thought as much as touch. It learned from them, adapted. It was alive in a way no human machine had ever been. Elira Voss stood beside him, her face pale but determined. She had studied every log, every symbol. These ships weren't built for conquest, she said quietly. They were built to protect Earth from something worse than the conquered. Before Ren could ask what that meant, alarms blared. Sensors detected a massive fleet entering the solar system. Not one ship, dozens, all bearing down on Jupiter. They're here, Ren said. On the view screen, the conquered armada formed a perfect ring around Europa. A voice echoed across all channels. Calm, cold, and final. This is Fleet Marshal Dorn of the Concord. Earth forces, power down your weapons. Surrender the forbidden armada. You have 10 minutes to comply. Ren looked at his crew. No one spoke. They all knew what surrender meant. Disarmament, occupation, maybe worse. He opened a channel. This is Captain Ren Hayes of Earth. We don't want war. But we won't give up our ships. They were left to us by our ancestors. They are ours. Silence followed. Then Dorn's voice returned, harder now. Your ancestors broke galactic law. They waged war on peaceful worlds. That is why you were hidden. That is why you must be contained. Ren didn't know if that was true, but he knew one thing. Earth had spent centuries alone dreaming of contact. Now that the galaxy had found them, it came with guns and demands. Then we'll talk after you lower your weapons, Ren said. Dorn didn't answer. Instead, his dreadnought fired not at the Odyssey, not at Europa. He fired a warning shot, just like the patrol ship had. A beam of blue energy streaked past the ancient fleet, vaporizing a chunk of ice from Europa's surface. It was meant to scare, to show power, but the ancient fleet didn't see it that way. To the ships, any hostile energy near Earth was an attack. Their programming didn't care about warnings. It cared about survival. Before Ren could shout, "Hold fire," the 1,000 warships reacted as one. Beams of white fire lanced out from every vessel. Not random, not wild, precise, targeted. Shields on the conquered cruisers flared and died. 2 ships exploded instantly. A third spun out of control, its engines dead. Dorn's voice roared over the comm. You leave us no choice. The conquered fleet opened fire in full. Space turned into chaos. Energy blasts crisscrossed the void. Fighters darted like angry insects. The Odyssey shuddered as a blast struck its shields. Ren gripped the command chair. Return fire, but aim for engines and weapons, not crews. The fleet obeyed. It was strange. The ship seemed to understand mercy even in war. Meanwhile, far from the battle, Kale's shuttle limped toward Earth. He had seen the fight begin on his long-range sensors. His heart pounded. He had to warn them. The conquered wasn't the real enemy. There was something worse. He finally reached low orbit. Using stolen Concord codes, he bypassed Earth's new defense grid and sent a priority message directly to the Odyssey. Ren received it. He read the words with growing dread. The Concord fears you because of your past, but the Syntheri fear you because of your future. They are coming, and they will not ask for surrender. Before Ren could respond, the battle changed. From the edge of the solar system, a new signal appeared. Not conquered, not human, cold, mechanical, hungry. A massive vessel, black as night, covered in shifting metal, emerged from warp space. It was alone, but it radiated power that made the conquered fleet look small. The Synthari had arrived. Dorn's ship stopped firing. Even the Conquered feared this new enemy. Their comms crackled with panic. "What is that?" Ren asked. Alira's eyes widened. She remembered a symbol from the ancient logs, a twisted spiral labeled the Devourers. "The Synthari," she whispered. "They tried to take Earth once. Our ancestors fought them off. But they never forgot." The black ship fired. Not at Earth, not at the Conquered. It fired at both. A wave of dark energy washed over the battlefield. Concord shields failed instantly. Human ships groaned as their systems flickered. Crew members screamed as their minds filled with static, a neural weapon designed to shut down thought itself. The Odyssey's lights dimmed. Ren felt a sharp pain in his head. He fought to stay awake. On the view screen, the Synthari ship began to grow. Parts of it unfolded like a flower made of nightmares. Smaller drones poured out, heading for every ship in range. Dorn's voice came through, weak but clear. "Earth, that we must join forces, or we all die." Ren looked at Alira. She nodded. He opened a channel to all ships, human and Conquered alike. "Form up on my position. Protect the inner planets. We fight together." For the first time in history, humans and aliens flew side by side, but the Synthari were faster, stronger, cruel. As the battle raged, Kale's shuttle docked with the Odyssey. He ran onto the bridge, breathless. "There's a way to stop them," he gasped. "But you won't like it." He held up a small device, a copy of the data core from Beacon 7. The Echo Protocol. It broadcasts everything, our history, our memories, our pain, our hope, across the entire galaxy. The Synthari can't process raw emotion. It breaks their logic. But it also reveals everything about us to everyone. No more secrets. No more hiding. Ren stared at the device. It was a gamble. If it failed, Earth would be exposed and defenseless. If it worked, they might survive. Outside, another Concorde cruiser exploded. The Synthari ship loomed closer. Ren made his choice. "Do it," he said. Kale plugged the core into the main console. Deep in the heart of the Odyssey, something ancient woke up, and across the galaxy, every living being suddenly heard a voice not in their ears, but in their minds. It was the voice of Earth. The moment the Echo Protocol activated, the battlefield fell silent, not from peace but from shock. Every mind within range, human or alien, was flooded with raw human memory. Not just words or images, but feelings. The joy of a child's first step. The grief of a mother losing her son in war. The quiet pride of planting a tree that will outlive you. The rage of injustice. The stubborn hope that tomorrow can be better. The Synthari ship shuddered. Its smooth black surface rippled like disturbed water. Inside, the biomechanical minds that ran on pure logic short-circuited. Emotion was chaos to them, unpredictable, dangerous. Their systems began to fail. Drones spun out of control. Weapons powered down, but the effect spread far beyond the solar system. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds, beings stopped what they were doing. Farmers dropped their tools. Soldiers lowered their guns. Leaders paused mid-sentence. For the first time, they truly understood humanity, not as a threat, but as a mirror. A species that made terrible mistakes, yes, but also one that painted stars on cave walls, wrote songs in the dark, and kept trying even when all seemed lost. On the conquered capital, the council watched in stunned silence as the broadcast played in their minds. Ambassador Lyra wept. Even Fleet Marshal Dorn stood still, his face unreadable, as memories of human courage and cruelty washed over him. But not everyone was moved. Deep in the galactic core, where no light reached, something ancient stirred. The Synthari were not just one ship. They were a hive. And their queen had been waiting. She had watched Earth for millennia. When humanity's ancestors drove her forces back thousands of years ago, she did not rage. She planned. She learned. And she built a weapon, a planet-sized machine buried in the heart of a dead star. It could erase entire civilizations by unraveling their atomic structure. She called it the Null Forge, and now with Earth's location revealed and its defenses exposed, she activated it. Back in the Sol system, the Synthari ship recovered faster than anyone expected. Its outer shell cracked open, revealing a pulsing red core. A new signal blasted out, not a weapon but a command. Across the galaxy, dormant Synthari outposts woke up. Hidden drones launched from asteroids, moons, and derelict stations. A second wave was coming, bigger, angrier. Captain Ren Hayes stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, his head still ringing from the Echo Protocol. He saw the new threat on the viewscreen. "They're not retreating," he said. "They're calling for help." Illyra studied the data streaming in from Kale's core. "There's more," she said, her voice tight. "The Syntheri didn't just fight our ancestors. They were created by someone else, someone who wanted to control the galaxy, and Earth was the only species that ever broke free." Kale nodded. "The Conquered hid Earth to protect the galaxy, but the Syntheri hid themselves to protect their revenge. Before they could plan, Fleet Marshal Dorn opened a secure channel. His face was tired, but his eyes were clear. "The Conquered Council is divided," he said. "Some want to join you. Others want to destroy Earth before the Synthari use it as a weapon. I believe you, but I can't bring my full fleet. Only those who choose to follow me." Ren didn't hesitate. "Then we'll take whoever you can give us." Within hours, a small group of Conquered ships broke formation and moved to join Earth's fleet. Pilots who had fired on humans hours before now flew beside them. Trust was thin, but survival was thicker. Meanwhile, deep in the Jovian ice, the last of the ancient warships rose. Not all were fighters. Some were carriers. Others were command vessels. One, larger than the Odyssey, carried a strange device in its core, a resonance key, designed to disrupt artificial hive minds. Illyra recognized it from the logs. "This is how our ancestors won last time," she said. "But it needs to be placed inside the Syntheri command node, and that's probably at their main base." Kale pulled up a star map. "There's only one place it could be. Zyros, a dead world near the galactic core. It's been empty for 10,000 years, but the energy readings, they're off the charts." Ren knew what that meant. A suicide mission. Fly deep into enemy space, past countless defenses, and plant a bomb inside the heart of the enemy. But there was no other choice. The Null Forge was charging. Sensors showed a wave of distortion spreading from the core, silent, invisible, but growing. If it reached Earth, the planet would vanish in an instant. No explosion, no warning, just gone. The plan came together fast. Earth's fleet would hold the line in the Sol system, protecting the inner planets. Dorn's loyal ships would guard the flanks, and a small strike team, led by Ren, Illyra, and Kale, would take the largest ancient vessel, the Aurora, and race toward Zyros. The night before launch, Ren walked through the Aurora's halls. The ship felt different from the Odyssey, older, sadder. In the command chamber, he found a final log from the last captain of the Ark Armada. The man spoke of sacrifice, of love for a world he might never see again, and of faith that one day, Earth would be ready to stand among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Ren touched the console. "We're ready now," he whispered. At dawn Earth time, the Aurora launched. It slipped past the battle lines, cloaked by ancient stealth fields that bent light and sound. Behind it, the combined human-conquered fleet braced for the Syntheri storm. The journey to Zyros took 3 days. Each hour, the Null Forge's signal grew stronger. Each jump through warp space risked detection. Twice they dodged Syntheri patrols. Once they lost a support drone to a minefield. When they finally arrived, Zyros was worse than they imagined. The planet was covered in black towers that pulsed like veins. The sky glowed red, and at its center, buried under mountains of metal, was the command node and the Null Forge. "This is it," Illyra said. Kale checked the resonance key. "It has to be placed in the core chamber. But the entrance is guarded by a neural lock. Only a human mind can open it." Ren looked at them. "Then I'll go." "No," Illyra said firmly. "The key responds to ancestral memory. I've studied the logs longer than anyone. It has to be me." Before Ren could argue, alarms blared. Synthari ships dropped out of warp all around them, dozens, hundreds. The Aurora was surrounded. "We're out of time," Kale said. Ren made the call. "Kyle, get Illyra to the surface. I'll hold them off." He turned the Aurora toward the enemy fleet. The ancient ship roared to life, its weapons glowing brighter than ever before. As shuttles launched toward the planet below, the Aurora charged into the heart of the Synthari swarm. It wasn't a battle. It was a shield, a final stand. On the surface, Illyra ran through tunnels of living metal, Kale at her side. The air hummed with hostile energy. Creatures made of wire and bone lunged from the shadows. They fought with tools, with fire, with desperation. Finally, they reached the core chamber. A massive door pulsed with red light. Elira placed her hand on it. Images flooded her mind. Her childhood, her parents, the first time she saw Earth from space. The door opened. Inside, the resonance key fit perfectly into a human-shaped socket. She turned to Kale. "It'll take 10 seconds to activate. Then the whole planet goes critical." Kale nodded. "Go, I'll hold the door." "No," she said. "You're the only one who can tell them what happened." She pushed him toward the exit. "Tell Earth." We remembered. As Kyle ran, Elira activated the key. Above, the aurora was breaking apart. Ren's last message crackled over the comms. For Earth, for everyone. Then silence. On Zeros, the ground shook. The towers collapsed. The red sky turned white, and deep in the galactic core, the null forge shut down forever. The Synthari hive screamed and fell silent, but the cost was high. The aurora was gone. Elira was gone. And the war was not over, because now the entire galaxy knew Earth's location, and not all of them were friendly. The silence after the explosion on Zyros was heavier than any battle noise. Kale floated in a damaged escape pod, drifting through the debris of the dead world. His body ached, his eyes burned, but his mind was clear. He had seen Elira's final act. He had felt the moment the resonance key tore through the Synthari hive mind like a storm through dry grass. The black towers had crumbled. The red sky had gone dark. And across the galaxy, every Synthari drone, ship, and weapon had simply stopped. But victory came with a price. The aurora was gone. Captain Ren Hayes was gone. And Earth, though saved from the null forge, now stood exposed. The Echo Protocol had shown the galaxy humanity's soul, but it had also shown them Earth's location, its defenses, its weaknesses. Some worlds wept with empathy. Others sharpened their claws. Kyle's pod was picked up by a Concord scout ship, one of Dorn's loyalists. They brought him to the Sol system, where the combined human-conquered fleet still held position near Mars. The battle there had been brutal. Dozens of Synthari ships had fallen, but so had many human and conquered vessels. The sky around Earth was littered with wreckage. When Kale stepped onto the bridge of the temporary command ship, a refitted human freighter, he saw faces hollowed by grief and exhaustion, but also by resolve. Dorn met him at the airlock. "You did it," he said, his voice rough. "The Synthari are broken." "Their hive is silent," Kale shook his head. "Not broken, wounded, and others are coming." He was right. Within hours, new signals appeared at the edge of the system. Not enemies. Not allies. Observers. Traders. Scouts from 100 species drawn by the Echo. Some came in peace. Others came to test Earth's strength. Earth Defense Command was overwhelmed. They had no diplomats, no experience with aliens beyond war, but they had one advantage. The 1,000 warships still floated in orbit, silent but ready. Then came the final threat. A massive vessel, larger than any seen before, dropped out of warp near Neptune. It bore no weapons, no markings, just a smooth silver hull that reflected the stars like a mirror. It sent no message. It simply waited. Kale knew what it was. "The architects," he whispered. "The ones who created the Synthari. Long ago, the architects had tried to build a perfect galaxy, orderly, efficient, emotionless. Humanity had ruined their plan by being messy, unpredictable, and free. They had vanished after their defeat, but not before hiding the Synthari as a last resort. Now with the Synthari gone, they had returned to see if their mistake, Earth, still lived." Global Command panicked. Some wanted to fire first, others wanted to hide. But Kale stood before them and spoke clearly. "They don't want war. They want to know if we've changed. If we're still the chaotic, dangerous species they feared." He proposed a bold plan, not with weapons but with truth. Using the last working core from the ancient fleet, they would send a new message, not just memories, but a live feed. Show the architects Earth as it was now. Cities rebuilding after climate disasters. Children learning alien languages. Farmers sharing seeds with off-world botanists. And soldiers standing guard not for conquest but for protection. It was a risk. If the architects saw weakness, they might strike. If they saw defiance, they might destroy Earth to preserve their order. But Kale believed they would see something else. The message was sent. For 3 days, nothing happened. Tension gripped every human and alien in the system. Then the silver ship moved. Not toward Earth, away. As it vanished into warp, it left behind a single object, a small crystal floating in space. When retrieved, it played a message in perfect human English spoken with calm, ancient tones. You were never the mistake. You were the hope. The galaxy forgot how to feel. You remembered. Guard that flame. We will not return. Relief washed over Earth like rain after drought, but peace did not come easily. The conquered council was in chaos. Some members demanded Earth be punished for breaking the quarantine and destroying conquered ships. Others argued that humanity had saved them all from the Synthari. Fleet Marshal Dorn stood before the council and spoke not as a soldier, but as a witness. I saw humans choose mercy in battle, he said. I saw them sacrifice everything to protect not just their world but ours. If that is danger, then I welcome it. His words swayed many. In the end, the conquered voted, not to punish Earth, but to invite it into the galactic community as an equal. Not a child. Not a threat. A partner. On Earth, celebrations were quiet. People were tired. They had lost much, but they had gained something greater, a place among the stars. Kale stood on a hill outside Geneva watching the night sky. Above him, human and conquered ships moved in slow, careful patterns, no longer enemies, but neighbors learning to share the dark. He thought of Alira, of Ren, of the 1,000 ships that had slept under ice for centuries, waiting for the right moment. They hadn't arrived late because of broken engines or lost maps. They had arrived late because the galaxy needed to be ready for them, and Earth needed to be ready for the galaxy. Now, both were. In the months that followed, Earth opened its first embassy on a neutral moon. Human scientists worked with alien engineers to rebuild the Synthari ruins into peaceful research stations. Children learned to speak in clicks and hums as well as English and Mandarin. And the ancient fleet? It was not retired. It was shared. Human crews trained alongside conquered pilots, learning from each other, guarding the fragile peace together. No one forgot the cost. Memorials were built on Earth, on Mars, even on the ice of Europa. But the future was not built on grief. It was built on choice. Humanity had been given a second chance, not because they were perfect, but because they kept trying to be better. And as the first joint human-conquered exploration ship launched toward the unknown, carrying seeds, books, and open hands, the stars no longer felt silent. They felt like home.